Welcome to the Thriving Christian Artist, the podcast where we hope you connect with God to bust through the roadblocks that have held you back for years, create the work you love, and really live the life you know God created you to live as an artist in His kingdom. I'm Matt Thomas, your host. Let's get started. Well, hey there. I'm so glad that you're on the podcast with me today. We're taking a little ride out to East Texas today to talk with my friend, artist Amy Haid Spence, who is a fabulous mosaic sculptor and is doing some really, really cool things with glass. You're going to love to hear her story. But like a lot of folks, spent a lot of time in her life trying to make it happen, being frustrated with not seeing the results in her life, spiritually, artistically, in business that she wanted to. She kind of spent a lot of years kind of floundering around and just being frustrated until the Lord began to show her how the kingdom worked. She has really got a great, great story about how the Lord began to teach her, not only through the mentoring program, but also just through her own journey, how the kingdom of God works and how to really connect with the assignment that He had on her life. And now she's really just experiencing thriving on a whole new level, which is so encouraging for me, and I know it's going to be encouraging for you as well. Now, one of the things that Amy talks about quite extensively in her interview is the role of community in her journey, and talking about how meeting other artists who love Jesus, who are on the journey to thriving artistically, spiritually, in their business, how that was a real game changer for her and has really continued to be a major source of inspiration in her life. And that's what I want to let you know about a really special opportunity that is going on right now. It's the opportunity to pre-register for our Thriving Christian Artists Conference coming up March 2020, right here outside Asheville, North Carolina. It's going to be an incredible weekend experience for artists of every artistic medium from all over the country. We'll have people internationally, all of America, Canada, coming together for a whole weekend to talk about what it means to thrive artistically, spiritually, and in business. There's going to be opportunities for networking. There's going to be opportunities to hear some of the best speakers out there in marketing, in healing and wholeness in your spiritual life, in developing your own artistic practice, and helping you go to the next level. The great thing is it's open to anybody. You don't have to be a member of the Created to Thrive Artist Mentoring Program. Anybody can come to the Thriving Christian Artist Conference, and we want to invite you to be a part. Now, here's the deal. Every time we do a conference, thankfully, it fills up very quickly. And so what we've started doing over the last few years is we've started doing a pre-registration process. What you can do is you can go right now into the show notes of this podcast, click on the link that talks about the pre-registration for the conference, and just pre-register your name. What that's going to do is two things. Number one, it's going to guarantee you first dibs to be able to register at the end of October when registration actually opens. It's going to give you first dibs before we open it to the public. All right. This will almost guarantee you a place at the conference so that you can register before we let it go to the public. The second thing is this. When you pre-register, you're going to have the opportunity to get $100 off. There's a $100 early bird discount for those people who pre-register. So listen, this is a no-brainer. All right? Go right now to the link in the show notes. Pre-register for the conference. That's going to get you then sent an email. It'll send you an email immediately with all the details for the conference, all the costs, all the dates that you need, transportation things, frequently asked questions. All that's going to be in the email when you pre-register. So be sure to do that today. You'll be learning more about the Thriving Christian Artist Conference coming up, but trust me, you don't want to miss it. All right. So go right now and pre-register. Now, before we get to my interview with Amy Haid Spence, I want to just give, of course, a great shout out to one of my podcast listeners. This one is from General John, listening over on iTunes, and it says, fantastic resource, Matt. Love Matt Tommy's podcasts, mentoring program, and Facebook communities. Matt is always relevant, relatable, and brimming with revelation. He touches on both the spiritual and practical aspects of creating art. For those who are pursuing art as a career, his teaching is invaluable. Well, General John, thank you so much for that. It's a huge encouragement to me. Lets me and our team know that what we're doing matters, and lets me know that there are people every day joining this army of artists that God's raising up all over the world. So thank you so much for that heartfelt review. Listen, if you're a regular listener to the podcast and you've not taken the time yet to subscribe and review the podcast, please take a minute and do that right now. You can just hit pause right now on the podcast, scroll down to the bottom, and find the little link that says write a review, and just write your review in there and submit it. And who knows, maybe I'll give you a shout out here on one of the podcast episodes coming up. All right. Well, hey, I'm going to get out of the way, and you're going to love this interview coming up with my friend, mosaic and sculpture artist, Amy Haid Spence. Well, hey, everybody, I'm so glad that you're on the podcast with me today. I've got my friend, Amy Haid Spence, with me all the way from East Texas. Woo! Woo-hoo! I'm so glad that you're with me today.
Matt, thank you so much. It's an honor to be here, and I just appreciate being a part of it. So
absolutely. I always love all my Texas people because we have a good time. Even though I'm not from Texas, we're still Southern, and we can still act like we're family. So
hallelujah.
That's right. Amy, you have such a unique artistic expression and that sort of thing. Kind of give everybody an idea of who you are, what you do, and that sort of where you are in the world. So,
okay. I am in deep East Texas. Thank the Lord. I moved away for a time, and so I'm thrilled to be back home where I was raised. I actually started out, I am a fine art stained glass mosaic artist, and just going into sculpture work with that. So when I lived in the panhandle of West Texas, I was sketching and drawing, and I wasn't doing mosaics, but I was around the New Mexico area. And so I just fell in love with that color. And so that was a big part of me just falling in love with what I do now. I was tickled to be able to go with the U.S. National Chorus as a soloist over in Europe when I was about 20. And I'd always seen mosaics here as like cracked pots and, kind of cheesy things. But I went to these beautiful European churches, and I just was blown away by these mosaics. I just couldn't believe they were everywhere, And so, but at the time I never thought, okay, you could do that. It just was in my mind so much.
Because there's not a whole lot of fine art mosaic work in East Texas.
That's right.
We were just in Romania, earlier in the year, and it was the same thing in these churches in Romania. And in Budapest too. You're like, oh my gosh! I mean,
unbelievable
that it would take.
You sent me one that was so beautiful. What you saw, that was beautiful. Well, you're right. In East Texas, you gotta kind of hunt them down, So, so that was like in 1990, and then years later, I always know how long I've done mosaics because my son is 18, and I started doing them. I decided that my first project would be a dining room table in stained glass, and so I'm kind of a go big or go home girl, and so I remember having to put him in this high chair across far enough to where I wouldn't speckle him with shards of glass, and yet have him close enough to be able. He was 6 months old, and so really that was my first. I'd done pottery, I'd done sketching, I'd done different things, and glass just stuck with me. It's you either love a medium or you don't, and it was challenging, but I absolutely fell head over heels in love with it. So
now, when you started out doing your art, did you automatically have an idea that you're going to be selling it, or was it mostly just hobby for you and you're giving it away, or how did that work?
Well, I mean, I think I've always wanted to be an artist. I think I always knew that was a part of me, but I don't know as a young mother if I had that belief system as far as I just wanted it. It really became, it was you talk about this a lot in the program, but it was really that I needed it and I couldn't afford it. And so let's just create it, And so it was more so in the beginning so that I could have the pretties in my home, that I wanted to be able to create myself for my home. But it definitely evolved itself from there, as far as from the beginning anyway.
That's the way I started out too, making baskets. I just made them for fun, and then I'd have them in the house. But then Tanya'd get mad at me because every now and then I'd have a show, and I'd go collect everything that I had made and, and take it out and sell it. She's like, "Would you just please not put these out, because I'm trying to decorate, and you're going out and selling them." I'm like, "We got to sell these things. There's no use in them just sitting around for me." So that's funny.
Gosh.
So as you started thinking, about becoming more of an artist and that sort of thing more seriously, I know one of the things you said in the past is that you really didn't have kind of a strategy for how to make that work. So what were you doing? Just kind of trying to feel it out the best way you knew how, or did you have a mentor or somebody that you were looking to for advice? Or
Well, even when I felt like things were, I'll tell you a little bit about coming back to East Texas. I had been in a really hard time in my life, and I moved back home, and you know how when you tell God, I will not do this, this is not what I'm, so I told God, I'll never work at a bank. And God was like, haha, you're going to work at a bank. And so my first job coming back, I'd been in financial advising a little bit, and I was at the bank, and I was miserable, and it wasn't a reflection of the bank so much as just it wasn't my path. So I truly had a God moment where I was like, okay, Lord, if you just want me to stop, dreaming about this, just make the dream go away. It sounds pitiful, but I really meant it, because I was staying up till 3:00 in the morning every morning, just exhausting myself.
Because it's frustrating when you don't see the dream coming to pass. I mean,
absolutely. And so I literally went back to the bank, and a call that was supposed to come in for the receptionist, I answered because she was busy, and someone said, I do mosaics, and someone's told me there's a mosaic artist here, and I'm trying to find her. I was like, okay, God, you're not a cruel God, so I don't know what this is about. That was right after I'd gone to lunch and been so sad. And so 2 weeks later, my land had sold that I had been breaking my back to make the payments on, and I had equity, and I opened up my studio. And so that was in 2012, which was a thrill, which led me to be able to study in Israel with mosaics and be able to see all of Jerusalem. It was just amazing. But I went on to exhibit at the National Finals Rodeo. But with all that, I was still just not consistently going the way I wanted to go. And I was frustrated all over again, because here God's given me the dream. I felt like that was total confirmation. And, Bishop Jakes is one of my favorite pastors in the world. And he said, when the arrow is pulled away from its target, it causes tension, great tension. But when it's released, it causes great momentum. And that's exactly where I was at.
Yeah.
But after all that, I was just still feeling like, what's wrong? What's going on where you can't figure this out? And I knew I had the tenacity. I knew I had a relationship with the Lord, and it still wasn't happening the way I needed it to. And so,
I've talked to so many people. I know my story too. When you're doing everything you can to love Jesus, keep it in the road, as we say, to do the things that you're supposed to be doing. And at the same time, it's not working out or not progressing in a way that you think it should, or even at all, not the way you should. That does not only have an effect on you, but it has an effect on how you view God and how you,
absolutely.
Was that true for you? Your spiritual relationship too? It kind of gets tense, like, okay, what is going on here?
Absolutely. That whole striving thing, that was going on big time, because I was like, Lord, I'm working hard, and I was having some successes, but I was just thinking, this is not what thriving looks like, Lord. This is not what I know. There were times in my life that I had way more than a mustard seed full of faith. And then there were times where I was just going, okay, Lord, I don't know what's going on. And so I kind of felt like, so in that enters, I go to a mentor program that I paid a substantial amount of money, and I respected the mentor of that program tremendously. It was just a very liberal-minded program, and I just wasn't a fit for it. And so here I've invested more money, and I'm still feeling frustrated. So that felt worse because I thought, okay, girl, what are you doing? Why are you not? I wasn't mad at God. I was upset at myself that, like, what are you not hearing from the Lord?
It's one thing to be frustrated. It's another thing to be frustrated and paying for it. Right.
That's right. That's right.
It's like, hello.
I'm like, oh, there's lots of time, there's lots of money, all those kind of things, because mosaics take forever. Here I've invested in this program. And so, boy, I was really, really frustrated at that point. And so someone told me about your podcast, and I had no idea that you had a mentor program until I listened to that podcast.
Now that must, because you've been in the mentoring program about a year, so that must have been just after I started the podcast.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so, Matt, I'm telling you, when I say the light bulb came on, it's like when I knew I had tons of work to do in the program, I instantly knew, oh, okay. I mean, and I don't know if I can even put that into words, as far as there's too much to be able to tell in that, but I felt such clarity. I felt such hope, and I was renewed in my spirit over that, because you can handle anything, even if you know you've got years ahead to kind of work on this or that. You know, you can really stay encouraged when you've got hope that, okay, I see the path again.
Yeah.
It was almost like the path went dark for me, as far as, and not in a dreary kind of way, but just, what do I go? Where do I go next? You know?
Yeah.
And so I felt like my relationship with the Lord through that was, you know, how as a Southern girl, when you're in a conversation and the conversation goes quiet and you kind of fill in the blank because you're just like filling in that empty space. Right. I was kind of doing that with the Lord. I was kind of like, okay, God, but what about this, you know? And I felt like he was telling me, girl, you need to be still. Okay. You need to settle down and just listen to me.
Yeah.
And so through that, I limited my palette. You know, I'd been in mosaic, so I thought, well, I am staying in one lane. I'm not going all over the board, but I was all over the board in mosaics. And so something I was frustrated about is I was doing these huge pieces, and yet I like to be out with people, and I'm a director of arts for a Kids Aspiring to Dream, a mentorship program for kids.
Oh, cool.
And so with that and other people, I like to be out there talking to, you know, different people, and I couldn't get enough pieces made. And so, you know, we talked about the little garden stones that I've started for the garden clubs and things. And so limiting my palette and being able to just kind of hone in, measuring things. I always listened to the big leadership books about goals and goal setting, but I wasn't setting the goals, you know? And so, and I didn't really even know how to define that in a way that I needed to. So it's just helped tremendously.
That's so good. I think even though I'm hearing, you know, it's not like you're not busy right now. I mean, you got a lot going on, but it's like the stress level has come way down. The striving has come way down.
Right.
And talk about that dynamic, because I mean, I think it's not like, see, I think a lot of people have this idea that, well, when God busts in and starts running this thing, all I got to do is just sit back and ride, you know. And it's like, well, no, you are in a place of receiving, but at the same time, you're out there as well, co-laboring with him. I always say, you know, you can't steer a parked car. I mean, so you got to be driving, you got to be out there doing that thing. And so talk about the momentum that you're feeling, because you are starting to see some incredible things happen in your work, but it's without the striving and without all the pressure that's been there before.
Absolutely. And that's such a balance too, because you're saying, you can't sit back. I mean, when I do a piece, I try to, my goal now has been to cut 500 pieces a day, which I kind of explain that online. If I'm actually going to put 500 pieces of hand cut glass on a piece, that means I've cut each piece about 5 to 10 times to make it fit. So that's 25 to 5,000 cuts a day when you think of to get a piece done. The piece that I'm working on right now will reveal soon. And if I just sat back and thought, well, heck fire, we'll just try to get this done when we can, I'd never get finished with it, because I've got a lot of hours to get done this week. But at the same time, I am resting in it now. I am
Yeah.
able to kind of sit back and be able to just say, okay, I look at it much more in a calm state, because I can just say, this is what I need to get done. The 3x3 and the 5x5 that you talk about in the
Yeah.
program, I think that's a great thing, because you can get so overwhelmed with bigger goals that you just can't even. That was my problem. I'd get overwhelmed with my list that I would make, and then I couldn't even tackle the list before.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I think breaking things down in manageable pieces for so many of us is so important. And then at the end of the day, being able to release that to the Lord and say, okay, Lord, I've done my part. I've invited you into this. I'm doing everything I can. Now I'm going to release the results to you, knowing that you're faithful to do what
that's
you
right.
do, to bring the wind on the offering, if you will,
That's
to
right.
bring the fire on the altar. I'm putting it up there. You do what you're going to do with it now. And I've just found over the years, and I know, like you just, are doing things at the Gaylord Center and all that. It's like, I know that when God does something, he can do so much more with so much less than all my
Absolutely.
striving and trying to make it happen could ever do.
Absolutely. That's what's happened this year. I got my first real publication with the County Line magazine. They did a blog spot, and then they'll be doing a full feature on me in November. And I'm just coming off Gaylord, and then I have several fall shows they're happening. But that wasn't me at all. That I know that without a shadow of a doubt that was the Lord just bringing his favor. And the community of Created to Thrive has helped me so much, because I mean, I met some fantastic ladies at Mastermind that, the right when the doors opened, I went right dead center to the room, and it just brought all these progressive ladies, and about, 80% of them were Texans. And so,
It was
we
the
just,
loud table. We'll just say
it
that.
was a loud table. But I mean, I met some of my best friends at that table, and we're constantly behind the scenes going, what about this? What do you think? And to be able to have that Christian atmosphere,
Oh yeah.
it made all the difference in the world for me, because I did not speak the language of artists that aren't. It's not that we're projecting everything as, we are Christian artists, but we speak a language that we understand. It's just a commonality that just helps so much. So
Well, I think just a very real reality, this, my mother-in-law, Nancy, who runs the back end of a lot of the admin for our mentoring program. She lives 20 miles from you. I mean,
yeah.
and so we were talking about this before on the call, but I was out there, Tanya and I and Cameron, we were out there, and every time they say, let's go ride somewhere, it's like an hour and a half to get to civilization. Cause I mean, you're in the country. I mean, I think
That's
we're
right.
in the country in the mountains, but like y'all are in the real country. And as we were riding down the road out there, I said, this is why, because we're in these little towns. I mean, like no stoplights, just a half a stop sign, and we're driving out there. I said, this is why community is so important in Created to Thrive, because so many people, wherever they are in the world, that are in the program don't have anybody
Absolutely.
that gets them. And, I get that for you, that, to be able to, I know that y'all are starting to gather now out there
Every month.
once a month, and having lunch together and all that. And it's like, it pulls people out of their shell, of their little hole that they've been in, and says, hey, there's people that are not only around the world, but there's people that are right here in your neighborhood. And that's just been such an encouragement, I know.
Absolutely, because we've just made it. I said, look, we're going to set the date, and if people can come, that's great. We don't really try to make it where everybody, because you'll never get it done,
Right.
And so
Right.
we just do it once a month, and the conversations we have at those tables, everybody just really gets restored. And even if we're in the program, it's sometimes good to just see somebody face to face, and
Absolutely.
it's just an extension of it. So it helps us. And another thing we've started is we found some Facebook pages where we're sharing local shows. And so I found out several shows that I didn't know anything about that were in my back pocket,
Awesome.
And so it's, yeah.
was community within community, which,
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. So, well, Amy, it's so exciting for me and for our team. And, we hear stories but to see your face and to hear what God's doing in your life, it's awesome. And I know folks are going to want to follow what you're doing, your artwork and all that kind of stuff, your journey as an artist. So where's the best place for them to be able to find you online?
On Instagram and Facebook, I'm just under Amy Haid Spence Studios. That's long. And then my webpage is getting a little beauty makeover, but it'll be back on in a couple days, and it's just amyhaidspence.com.
Awesome.
So.
Awesome. Well, Amy, thank you so much for being a part of the podcast today and sharing your story. I know it's going to be a huge encouragement to everybody that's listening. So,
well,
thanks.
Matt, thank you so much for what you've done for all of us. I tell you, our lives are forever changed by what we've experienced in this. So I can't thank you enough for what you've done for all of us.
Well, you are certainly welcome. Hey, thanks so much for spending a few minutes with me today on the podcast. Listen, I hope it's been a huge encouragement to you on your journey as an artist. Hey, also, before you leave, make sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any of the other episodes of the Thriving Christian Artist podcast. And also, be sure to connect with me on Facebook, Instagram, or at my website, which is matttommymentoring.com. Until next time, remember, you were created to thrive. Bye-bye.